Heartwarming act, poor girl's incredible kindness revealed as CEO's mother is insulted publicly. The cafe buzzed with chatter, the aroma of coffee and baked goods swirling around Clara as she took a deep breath. At just 17, she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders, balancing 2 jobs after school. Her mother needed her, not just for money, but for hope. But that day, hope took a backseat as Clara overheard laughter that cut through the cozy atmosphere. A group of well-heeled teenagers were mocking Helen Bennett, the elderly mother of the town's CEO, Richard Bennett. Clara stiffened, the room buzzing in synchronization with their cruel words. They called Helen old news, snickering at her silver hair and fragile frame, tossing around snide remarks like confetti. Their laughter echoed painfully in Clara's heart because she had seen enough struggle to recognize the harm in their easy cruelty. Clara's fists clenched. In the midst of her own battles, her mother had always taught her to stand up for those who couldn't. She couldn't just sit there. Hey! Clara's voice rang out, shaking slightly, catching even her own surprise. You don't know anything about her. The laughter faded, replaced by stares. Helen has spent decades caring for people in this community. She's a kindness warrior. The group shifted, their confidence faltering in the face of her defense. Clara felt a surge of something strength? Anger? Maybe, a little of both. People nearby began nodding, murmurs of agreement rippling through the cafe. For a moment, the air filled with something magical, empathy. But the moment of triumph was short-lived. News spread faster than Clara could have predicted. Soon enough, Richard Bennett was standing in front of her, his voice coated with disbelief. How dare you embarrass my mother in public? He towered over her, his expression a storm of privilege and anger. I didn't mean to embarrass her, Clara replied, her heart racing. I just wanted to speak up. She didn't back down, battling the walls of wealth that surrounded him with the fierce determination that had been birthed from adversity. Their heated exchange escalated, exposing deep divides between them. Clara felt misunderstood, Richard wrestled with the burden of his name, the weight of his mother's reputation. Each accusation and defense became a step deeper into a chasm of privilege and perception. Days later, Clara found herself preparing for a community rally, her heart heavy yet resolute. As she stood there, the crowd grew silent, watching her. She couldn't help but feel a mix of fear and purpose unfolding in her chest, a familiar surge of hope. My family struggles too. She began, recounting her mother's sacrifices, her own hardships, and the stigma attached to poverty. Faces around her shifted, some skeptical, some sympathetic. Then, Richard stepped in, his presence unexpected yet commanding, with tension churning like a restless sea. Clara connected Helen's generosity to her own family's uphill battle. Something shifted in the air. The crowd leaned forward, captivated. Just when everyone teetered on the brink of transformation, Richard raised his hand, ready to unveil his thoughts, trembling with tension, but before he could speak, a loud crash erupted from the back. The lights flickered and went out, plunging everyone into darkness. Clara's breath caught in her throat, anticipation crackling like electricity in the air. What would Richard confess? Would they finally break the barriers between them, or would the fight continue in shadows? The room thickened with unspoken truths, leaving Clara dangling at the edge of change, holding her breath for what came next. The sudden darkness enveloped the crowd, muffling the whispers and gasps that rippled through the gathered people. Clara felt a chill, not just from the shroud of uncertainty but from the raw energy of the moment. She could hardly breathe, her mind racing with the possibilities. Is everyone okay? Richard's voice pierced through the despairing silence, sounding oddly calm despite the chaos. It was a voice that usually commanded respect, yet in that moment, it echoed with vulnerability that caught Clara off guard. The flickering of the emergency lights added to the suspense, casting eerie shadows across faces that had shifted from judgment to concern. Clara squeezed her eyes shut for a moment, trying to shake off the fear. She could feel the energy of the crowd, a blend of anxiousness and curiosity. Maybe this darkness would spur a deeper revelation. As she opened her eyes again, she saw Richard standing just a few feet away, the outline of his form barely visible. For a fleeting moment, he looked human, stripped of the privilege and anger that typically colored their encounters. "Look, I know this must feel uncomfortable," he spoke softly. "But perhaps we can take this moment to talk." Clara's heart raced. Talk? Was this what she had fought so hard for? Was the barrier starting to crack? "You want to talk?" She challenged lightly, the tone of her voice surprising even herself. It was almost daring, it tested the waters between them. "Yes," Richard replied, a hint of desperation breaking into his polished demeanor. "If there's ever a moment to communicate, it's now, as we're all in this darkness together." The crowd began to respond. "Yeah, let us hear it." Someone shouted from the back, and others chimed in agreement. A wave of anticipation surged through Clara, as if she were standing on the brink of something monumental, her heart thumping loudly with hope. "Okay," Clara found herself saying, her voice steadier than she felt. "Tell me why it's so easy for you and your friends to laugh at my friend Helen. Why don't you see how much she cares?" I get it, Clara," Richard said, the words pouring out amidst the quiet murmurs of the crowd. "I never wanted to hide behind my money or background. I want to honor her. But sometimes I feel like I'm in a bubble, you know? Trying to maintain a reputation." The shifting crowd took in his words, the hushed tones turning into contemplative whispers. Clara's pulse quickened. There it was, the crack she had hoped for. "We all want that connection, Richard. These walls we build, they only trap us." In the enveloping darkness, Clara noticed small gestures of empathy. A young woman reached for her friend's hand, a man leaned in closer to hear better. It felt like they were together in this, all of them. Maybe even Richard. For every person like Helen, there are countless stories unheard, Clara continued, more emboldened than before. "We want to share them, not hide them under arrogance or privilege. Not anymore." Light gradually flickered back on, blinking in and out before finally bathing the room in a warm glow. Clara could see faces, curious, concerned, inspired. The tension was still palpable, but something changed. Richard turned to the crowd, his expression earnest. "Let us do something different. Let us hear from each other. Not just the CEOs or the wealthy, but everyone." An unexpected stillness settled in. The air seemed lighter, as if hope and connection were taking root among them. Just as Clara opened her mouth to encourage Richard to say more, the door swung open, and a gust of wind rushed through, causing papers to scatter and an overwhelming sense of unease to wash over the crowd. "What is all this?" A deep, intimidating voice barked from the entrance, freezing everyone in their seats. Clara's stomach churned. Who was this intruder ready to disrupt their fragile moment? The question hung in the air, thick with uncertainty. Would this person shatter their burgeoning dialogue, or would they uncover another truth waiting to be spoken? Anxiety clashed with hope, as Clara braced for whatever was to follow. The crowd seemed to shrink back, instinctively bracing for the incoming storm. Clara could feel the tension coiling in the air, a whispered threat hanging over them like a dark cloud. She tried to catch a glimpse of whoever had just barged in, but the figure remained mostly hidden in the shadows. Only the white of a shirt collar and the glint of sharp eyes stood out. "Is this some sort of joke?" The voice continued, dripping with scorn. "A charade in the light of day? You think this is a time for sharing stories?" Richard stepped forward, a fleeting look of concern etched into his brow. "This isn't a joke. We were having a talk." The intruder cut him off, stepping fully into the light. A man dressed in a crisp suit, arms crossed challengingly. "Talking isn't going to solve anything. It never does. You think your little heart-to-heart is going to change the world?" Clara could sense the crowd's collective unease rise to a breaking point. Some people shifted in their seats, eyebrows furrowed, while others looked at Richard for answers. A harsh laugh echoed from the man, the sound biting through the atmosphere. These people aren't here for conversation. They're here for the spectacle. How many of you would actually listen? Richard opened his mouth, then closed it again, visibly shaken. Clara felt a protective surge for him. This was their chance, the light at the end of the tunnel shining brighter than ever, and it was being threatened by this unwelcome presence. "Maybe you're right," she called out, her voice surprisingly steady. The crowd's heads turned toward her, surprise flickering in their eyes. Maybe someone listen. But if just one person hears something that resonates, that could be enough to start change. Isn't that worth pursuing? The sharp-eyed man raised an eyebrow, a flicker of interest breaking through his icy demeanor. He settled his gaze on Clara. "And you think you're the voice of change? A poor girl standing in the shadows of the rich and powerful?" Clara felt every eye on her, the weight of their expectations pressing down. Her heart hammered against her chest, but she forced herself to meet his gaze. "It's not about who stands where. It's about the story that needs to be heard. It's about compassion and understanding compassion." He scoffed, cutting her off again. "What do you know about compassion? You think you have what it takes to change the hearts of men like me? Is it so easy for you to dismiss me?" Clara shot back, fire igniting in her chest. "What if I told you that somewhere in this crowd, there's a story connected to yours, something that could make you rethink everything?" Richard took a step closer to Clara, his eyes wide as if he was finally connected to her passion. "He's right. Stories can change us. Every single one of us has experienced pain, joy, or hope. We often underestimate the collective power of our voices." The intruder's bravado faltered for just a moment, and Clara seized the opportunity. "We're not asking for your approval. We just want to be honest. If you want to ignore your privilege, that's your choice. But this is bigger than you or me. It's about breaking the silence." An unexpected gasp rippled through the crowd, as Clara's words hung heavy in the air. Murmurs spread like wildfire, igniting a flicker of defiance in even the most timid faces. "Now you see it, don't you?" Richard continued, his voice gaining confidence. "It's about connection, about hearing the truth. Let us not let one voice drown out the symphony of the many." The man stood there, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. The crowd began to shift again, their energy becoming palpable, a unified front ready for transformation. Just when it seemed like Clara's bravery would give them the breakthrough they so desperately needed, the man's eyes lock onto her once more. "You really think you can change anything here? Think again." And in that moment, Clara felt something uneasy shift in the air. What had started as a possibility now felt like a high-stakes gamble. Would this intruder reveal a greater truth, or would he undermine everything they had built in that fleeting darkness? The atmosphere turned electric. Clara felt her heart race as the intruder's words echoed ominously in her ears. It was as if he had thrown a raw nerve into the room, each person present sensing the tension and the threat implicit in his challenge. She glanced at Richard, whose brow furrowed deeper, uncertainty etched across his face. Was this truly a battle of wills, or something much more profound? "Change is possible," she asserted, her voice stronger now, emboldened by the support she sensed mingling through the crowd. "We've all felt the desperation. It's that shared pain that connects us. Who are you to dismiss our stories?" The man stepped closer, his sharp eyes narrowing. "What do you really hope to gain here? Do you think a few sob stories will drive change? You shouldn't fool yourself. People don't listen. They don't care." A murmur of dissent swept through the crowd, rippling like waves. Clara could see their expressions, eyes glazing with hope and anger alike. It felt tangible, a living entity that filled the space. But with each taunt from the intruder, the energy dimmed just a little more. "Maybe they don't care about the same things you do," Richard said, his confidence surging as he took a step closer to the man. But they care about something, and that matters. Isn't that worth listening to? There was a moment of silence, thick and suffocating, as the intruder regarded them both. Clara could feel the collective breath of the crowd, caught in their chests. What would he say next? What could possibly be louder than his scorn? Then he smiled, a chilling grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. If anyone here is looking for a spectacle, it's this charade you're putting on. You think you'll open hearts? Is that the theory you're pushing? Because it sounds naive and honestly, pathetic. Pathetic? Clara echoed, fury igniting anew. You think it's easy standing up here, exposing our truths? It's not a game. It's our lives. The crowd erupted, a swell of voices rising to echo her sentiments. Clara felt a cohesion among them that was almost palpable, a collective heartbeat matching the drumming of her own. The intruder's gaze darted over the crowd, searching for cracks in their resolve. Clara realized in that moment that he thrived on division and disdain. He wasn't just challenging them, he was feeding off their fear. Behold, the strength of the people, Richard said, his voice filled with inspiration. When anger meets understanding, it can drive change. There's power in our vulnerability. The energy in the room shifted again, rising like a tide on the brink of crashing, something waiting just underneath, ready to break free. Clara watched as more people stood, murmurs mingling into a roaring chorus of agreement. They were rising together, not afraid of the threat looming before them. Listen to them. Clara cried out, waving her hands like a conductor drawing out an orchestra. Each story is a note, harmonizing into something beautiful. We're not here to impress you. We're here for each other. An awkward pause hung over the crowd, and for a brief moment, Clara feared it was too late, too overwhelming. But then the first fragile voice broke through, a woman's tone, trembling yet strong. I lost my home, but I found a community, she said, her eyes shining as they met Clara's. That was it, a spark ignited in the darkened room. Stories poured forth like water from a broken dam, each tale intertwining with the next. Laughter mixed with tears, raw honesty merging with shared exultation. The intruder stood frozen, and Clara could see a crack appear in his steely facade. Was it possible? Perhaps he would start to listen, or perhaps something darker loomed beneath that facade. With every story, the stakes heightened, the crowd steadfast, unyielding. Clara suddenly sensed that this confrontation had only just begun. What ramifications would emerge from this raw act of rebellion? Are you ready to listen? A voice called out, echoing Clara's thoughts, leaving everyone on edge. The moment of truth was approaching, and none could predict how it would unfold. The intruder's smile flickered uncertainly, a glimpse of confusion creeping into his composed exterior. Clara felt the tension shift, a fragile thread linking them all, as if a gust of wind had roared through a still forest. The stories flowed freely now, each one resonating like a chord struck in unison, drowning out the last remnants of the intruder's jeers. Thank you for listening, another voice broke through the noise. It was an elderly man, his voice frail yet purposeful. My son, he was taken from me too soon. But I found warmth in this community. You are my family now. His words were heavy with sorrow, but they also carried an undeniable strength. The crowd nodded, some wiping tears. Clara's heart swelled as each story joined the collective chorus. With every tale, the walls that had once felt so insurmountable started to crumble. The intruder, caught in this wave of shared humanity, attempted to regain his foothold. You think this is real? Do you really believe you're changing anything? People will forget it all by tomorrow. Maybe some will, Richard shot back, his voice steady and fierce. But not us. This is where we stand together. Not just for ourselves, but for those who can't speak up. The crowd erupted into applause, their energy igniting another round of stories. A young woman stepped forward. I faced the worst of life, addiction nearly destroyed me. But this place saved me. I found hope here. Clara could see the intruder's confidence dull. His bravado cracked, revealing frustration beneath the surface. The energy pulsated as hearts opened, their stories weaving a tapestry of resilience. Enough! He finally shouted, his voice piercing through the warmth. You still think this will change anything? You're merely fooling yourselves. No, Clara countered, stepping forward with a newfound conviction. We're not fools. We're fighting for our lives, our dreams. And that alone is powerful. The crowd roared as one, drowning out his accusations. Clara could feel the heat of their determination, a fire ignited by their shared battles. The energy surged, morphing from anxiety to defiance. But then a small voice emerged from the back. A child, no older than 10, stood clutching a worn-out teddy bear, his innocence stark against the heaviness in the air. I just want to go to school, I want to learn, he said, his words soft but steady, as if defying the weight of the world. It was a plea, a reminder of what was at stake. The room fell silent, every gaze drawn to him. Clara felt an ache in her chest. This was more than a fight, it was about dreaming, about the future. All of us were fighting for something, she said, her voice breaking slightly. For the child who wants an education. For the homeless who deserve shelter. For every heart that has been wronged. These stories matter. The crowd erupted again, a wave of emotion crashing together, their hearts pounding like drums of war. Clara could feel her own heartbeat matching the rhythm, a powerful lifeline connecting everyone in that room. The intruder, now visibly shaken, stepped back. The fierce fire in the crowd had morphed into a blazing inferno, one that threatened to consume his doubt. But instead of retreating entirely, he looked around at the faces filled with hope and anger, eyes bright with ambition. What if, he started, a hint of something less than hostility creeping into his voice, what if this isn't harmless? Clara held her breath. For the first time, she sensed a fragment of curiosity in his tone. Could he really be willing to listen? Was there a chance to transform this confrontation into something more than just a challenge? But the moment hung in the air, precarious, a tightrope walk between confrontation and connection. Are you willing to join us? Someone in the crowd shouted, and the room echoed the sentiment, a collective breath held tight like a secret. His expression shifted. What would he say next? Clara leaned in, anticipation coursing through her veins. Could this be the moment they had all been waiting for, or was it just the calm before another storm? The intruder's gaze darted around the room, uncertainty flickering like a candle struggling against the wind. Clara's heart raced. This was at the pivotal juncture that could redefine everything. For a moment, an electric stillness enveloped the crowd. Each person seemed to hold their breath, eyes glued on him, seeking an answer. Clara's palms were clammy, her throat dry, but she stood tall, willing him to see the truth among the stories that surrounded him. Why would I do that? He finally spat, the edge returning to his voice. But Clara sensed a weakness beneath his bravado, a crack in the armor of cynicism he wore. Because you might discover something valuable, she answered, her voice soft but unwavering. You're human too. This isn't about fighting each other, it's about understanding and growing together. The crowd began to chant softly, join us. Join us. The imploring resonance of their voices filled the space, wrapping around him like a comforting embrace. Clara watched as the intruder's face twisted into a moment of conflict, a mix of anger and curiosity battling for dominance. Why should I care about you? He shot back, but the words felt hollow, less like a challenge and more like a plea for assurance. A woman stepped forward, her face lined with wisdom. Because we care. You're not here just to mock us. There's a reason you came tonight. Maybe deep down, you're searching for something too. Her eyes bore into him, a mother's compassion shining through her grief. The air shifted, thickening with anticipation. Clara could see the wave of realization ripple across the room. They weren't just questioning the intruder, they were extending a lifeline laden with genuine openness. Maybe he began hesitantly, his voice trembling like a child's. Maybe I thought I could come here and tear you all down. But his voice faltered, the confession competing with his earlier bravado. But what? Clara urged, stepping forward once more. I don't know, he replied, frustration and vulnerability erupting simultaneously. I wanted to prove you were all wrong, but now I'm not so sure. He looked around, almost scanning their faces for comfort, yet still retreating inward. Clara moved closer, determined to break through the walls. It's okay to feel lost. We've all been there. That's why we're here, to lift each other up. As the words settled, the crowd shifted in unison. Hope danced through the air, and she saw expressions soften. Lives entwined in that moment began to weigh against his stubbornness, the warmth of connection breaking his stranglehold on cynicism. Is this what you really want? He asked, his voice nearly a whisper. To let me in? The crowd surged with encouragement. Clara nodded, her heart pounding. Yes. We want you to see the power of hope, of community. We want you to be a part of it. Her words hung in the air like an invitation floating over water. The intruder's fists relaxed. Uncertainty flickered across his face, and something deeper, a longing, perhaps, surfaced. Could he really step into the web of compassion that had been woven before him? A sudden wave of noise erupted as someone in the crowd cried out, "We can all change." The sound echoed through the room, a chorus of excitement and belief rising like a tide. His walls started to deteriorate, but still, doubt lingered behind his eyes. Clara could practically hear his internal battle. Would he choose to rebuild among them or continue isolated in his fortress of skepticism? Will you take the first step? She asked, the room falling silent again. The intruder looked at his hands, balling them into fists and then relaxing them, as if weighing the weight of his decision. Clara's heart raced as she waited for his answer, for the realization that could shatter barriers or create new ones. Just as he opened his mouth, the door swung open, disrupting the moment. A man dressed sharply but looking frantic rushed in, a personal connection to the intruder's past, and Clara's stomach tightened. What could this person possibly want? Wait! The newcomer shouted, eyes darting between the crowd and the intruder. You all need to hear this. What was about to unfold? Clara felt a knot in her chest, the energy shifting yet again. The room buzzed with tension as the newcomer, a tall man with sharp features and an anxious demeanor, took center stage. Clara's mind raced. Who was he? Why had he barged in at such a critical moment? The intruder, still grappling with vulnerability, froze at the sight of the man. Clara detected a flicker of recognition in his eyes, a mix of fear and resentment. Who was this stranger who could wield such power over the intruder's emotions? Everyone, the newcomer stammered, taking a deep breath that seemed to ground him. I know this might seem unexpected, but I have something important to share. His gaze shifted, locking onto the intruder with fierce intensity. James, it's about your mother. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Clara felt the weight of the moment pressing down, squeezing her heart. The intruder James turned pale, his earlier bravado fading into unguarded shock. It was clear from the collective breath the audience held, this revelation struck a nerve. Why are you here? James growled, resentment creeping back into his voice, but it trembled now, undercut by a mix of fear and curiosity. What could you possibly want? I know you haven't spoken to her in years, the man continued, unwavering. But she's been trying to reach out. She loves you. And right now, she's in a hospital, she needs you. The air thickened with disbelief. Clara's heart raced, a tumult of emotions flooding her senses. Was this the truth James had been fighting against? The possibility of love amidst years of silence. James's fists clenched tighter as he processed this information. Clara felt an overwhelming urge to comfort him, to help him navigate this explosive moment. But she could not abandon her post as the beacon of hope. Instead, she stepped slightly forward, letting her words be a bridge. James, whatever you think happened in the past, right now, you have a choice, Clara said gently. You can decide how this story unfolds. You can choose connection or fear. You can choose to step toward healing. As the murmurs of the crowd echoed her sentiments, James's walls began to shake. Clara saw it, the flicker of possibility igniting behind his turbulent eyes. But she hurt me. He shouted, the words trembling at the edges. She left me when I needed her the most. Why should I care now? Because healing starts with forgiveness, the newcomer replied, his voice steady, almost soothing. You don't have to carry that burden alone. You can release it. James shook his head, lost in a tempest of emotions. Clara's heart ached for him. He was standing at the edge of a precipice, peering into an abyss of unresolved pain and potential sisterhood. Would he leap of faith or retreat back into the shadows? What if she is still the same? He whispered, doubt dripping from every syllable. What if she isn't? Clara interjected softly, holding his gaze. What if this is your chance for a new beginning? You owe it to yourself to find out. Don't let fear steal your future. The room was charged with anticipation. All eyes were on James, the weight of collective hope pinning him in place. Torn between the familiar thorns of his past and the blossoms of what could be, he stood silent. Think about it, the man urged, his eyes pleading. You can mend what was broken. You deserve peace, and she deserves the chance for redemption. Don't you deserve a chance to heal? James's expression began to shift, a flicker of resolve beginning to spark, battling against the despair that had held him captive for so long. But just as it seemed he was ready to embrace this possibility, the crowd hushed, tension seeping back into the air like a slow breeze before a storm. What will you choose, James? Clara asked, her heart pounding. Will you walk this path toward healing, or will you stay lost in the past? Just then, a distant siren wailed, adding urgency to the moment. Clara felt her heartbeat echoing in her ears, the fragile thread of destiny thinly hanging in the balance. The crowd leaned in closer, a web of collective hope weaving around them. And as he opened his mouth to respond, the door swung wide. Again this time, revealing a woman with tears of desperation glistening in her eyes. James. Please wait. I need to talk to you. What did she know? Clara's heartbeat quickened. What was about to be revealed would not just change James's future, but could redefine their entire gathering. James's eyes widened as he locked onto the woman standing in the doorway. Her face was familiar yet foreign, like a forgotten piece of a puzzle he had long since put away. The tension in the room shifted again, palpable, as everyone leaned forward, eager to witness this unexpected turn. Sarah, he breathed, his voice barely above a whisper. Shock and confusion washed over him, mingled with an inkling of recognition. Memories of a young girl with teasing laughter flooded back, a fleeting glimpse of happiness, hidden beneath layers of pain. Clara watched James, noting the rapid changes in his expression. Was this woman a vestige of his youth? The face he thought he had buried under resentment and hurt? James, please, Sarah implored, stepping into the room with hesitance, it's about your mother. I didn't know how to reach you, or if you even wanted to see her, but I had to try. She's different now. She's changed. The newcomer stood back, no longer the center of attention, almost as if he sensed the gravity of the moment belonged solely to them. Clara's heart ached for both of them. The tension was like a taut string, ready to snap. Changed? James echoed, voice trembling with disbelief. How can you even say that? She made her choice and it caused a chasm between us. Please, Sarah begged, her voice trembling, don't shut me out. She regrets what happened. It's why she has been trying to find you. She needs you now more than ever. James's eyes softened momentarily, as if some deep-seated part of him yearned to reach out to the possibility of healing. Clara took a step closer, willing to infuse the space with hope, to help guide him through the tangled emotions that threatened to overwhelm him. "James, do you remember the warmth of your mother's love? Even if it feels buried, it was real once," Clara said, her voice edged with urgency. "What if she has spent years reflecting on her mistakes? What if you could give her one chance? For yourself?" James was caught in a tempest of doubt. Clara could see it whirl within him as he fought against the truth he hadn't wanted to face. This wasn't just about his mother, it was about him, too. It was about his scars and the weight of carrying anger for so long. "Wouldn't you want that?" Sarah pressed gently. "She's in the hospital fighting. Can't you find it in your heart to meet her? Just once? For closure?" A moment hung between them, heavy and silent, like a child holding their breath while waiting for a surprise. Clara held her own breath, hoping against hope that he would find the strength to step through the door of possibility. "I don't know if I can." James's voice cracked. His internal battle was clear, his heart and mind clashing wildly amidst decades of hurt. "Sometimes, it only takes one moment of courage," Clara urged softly. "One simple choice can change the trajectory of your life, James." Suddenly, without warning, James's shoulders slumped, his expression cascading into uncertainty. It was as if the walls he had built around himself were beginning to crumble, exposing the raw, vulnerable man underneath. He started, and just as he began to voice the possibility, another piercing siren echoed from afar. It spiraled around them, intensifying the air of urgency that swirled in the room. "Please, James." Sarah's voice became desperate, pleading for closure, for a chance to redeem the past. "She needs you. Don't wait until it's too late." Would he answer the call of his past, or let fear dictate his future? As Clara waited for his answer, the room felt painfully still. Every heartbeat resonated like a ticking clock, reminding them of how quickly time passed. This moment could shatter the past's grip or allow it to tighten. "Will you take the leap?" Clara whispered in the silence, her hope tangled with dread. And just then, James turned, eyes wide with the weight of decision, ready to speak. But would it be too late for their lives to change? James's heart raced, his pulse echoing in his ears like a distant thunderstorm. The weight of Sarah's plea hung heavy in the air. He glanced between Clara and the woman he once knew, years of hurt colliding with the whispered hope for reconciliation. Clara's voice was gentle, yet firm, as if she were trying to coax a frightened animal from its hiding place. "What do you truly want?" The question echoed painfully in his mind. It was easy to feel anger and resentment. The years of being abandoned filled him like darkness. But how could he ignore the flicker of a long-lost bond? His mother's face flashed vividly in his memory, the way she giggled at his childhood mischief or wrapped him in warmth when the night was too cold. "I want to be free," he murmured, more to himself than to the others. "Free?" Sarah stepped closer, pain etched in her expression. "Free from what? The memories? Or the hope that things could be different?" James shut his eyes, trying to shake free the turmoil. The images of his mother shifted into a blur of regret and longing. The siren wails faded, replaced by the soft beat of his heart, urging him to make a choice. "I don't know how to forgive her," he whispered, his voice breaking. "She broke everything." "But you can't carry this alone anymore," Clara interjected, her urgency rising. "You deserve peace too. What will it take for you to take that first step?" Sarah remained still, hopeful. "James, seeing her could change everything. For you. For her. You've always wanted the truth. You deserve what she has to say." He opened his eyes, searching for answers in their faces. The battle between his heart and his head felt like an unrelenting storm. The thought of facing his mother sent dark waves of anxiety crashing over him. Yet, something deeper, a yearning for understanding, a flicker of love dared to break through. What if his mother had really changed? What if this was that moment that could redefine everything for him? A moment that could shift the narrative of their past into something that could finally hold hope. Okay, he said, the word coming out in a rush. I'll go. I'll see her. Relief washed over Sarah's face like sunlight breaking through clouds. Thank you, James. You don't understand how much this means to her, to all of us. James nodded slowly, still trying to process his decision. But as his resolve began to settle inside him, a new wave of trepidation rolled in. Just what if she isn't different? The thought gnawed at him. That's the risk, Clara responded, placing a hand on his arm. But you have to know for yourself, James. You have to see her for who she is now, not who she was then. He looked at Clara, gratitude blooming in the warmth of her support. With a determination he hadn't felt in months, he turned back to Sarah. Lead the way. As they stepped towards the door, the air hummed with possibility. Each step felt monumental, like the first breath taken after being submerged underwater for too long. But inside him, doubt still lingered like a shadow, whispering of fear and old wounds. Just remember, Clara called after them, her voice steady, the past shapes you, but it doesn't have to define you. With every inch away from the past, he felt a flicker of hope, even as the storm of his feelings brewed just beneath the surface. What awaited him at the hospital? Would the reunion be a balm for old wounds or a fresh wave of pain? James's heart raced as they approached the hospital doors, uncertainty looming ahead of him like a door cracked open to the unknown. Would he find closure or more questions than answers? As they crossed the threshold, he held on to the hope that somehow this journey would lead toward healing, not just for him, but for the woman who bore him. The moment felt electric, charged with potential and the weight of relationships long unresolved. Was this the leap toward redemption or the beginning of a new heartache? Only time, and his mother waiting within, could reveal the truth. The hospital lobby was bright and sterile, its walls a muted white that felt almost unforgiving. Clara's heart raced as she watched James' shoulders tense up. He was hesitant, like he was about to step into a cage of memories. But right now, he was steps away from liberation. Are you ready? Sarah asked softly, her voice breaking the silence. James didn't respond but nodded, a slight movement that spoke volumes. Clara stood back, knowing this was his moment, not hers. Take a deep breath, she said gently. He inhaled deeply, letting the air fill his lungs, searching for the courage to move forward. The air inside the hospital was different, cool, yet heavy with anticipation. Every step felt monumental, like they were walking through time itself. As they approached the room, James hesitated again, anxiety washing over his features. What if she is still angry? He murmured, his voice a strained whisper. She is your mother, Clara replied, her voice steady and firm. You deserve to hear her side. You deserve closure, James. His eyes darted toward Sarah, who offered him an encouraging smile. With a deep breath, James finally pushed the door open, stepping into a realm that would determine his future. The room was small, with a single bed propped up against a window. And there, wrapped in stark white sheets, lay his mother, her once bright hair now dulled with age, framed by the lines of a life lived. Her face softened with confusion as she looked up, her eyes locking onto James's. James. Her voice was shaky, filled with a mix of trepidation and hope. I didn't think. Tears welled in her eyes. Why did you leave? James shot back, pain slicing through his voice. Why did you abandon me? I was scared, she admitted, her voice thick with emotion. I thought leaving would be best for you. I was wrong. I grew up without you, he said, his voice trembling slightly. You missed everything. A wave of guilt washed over her features. I know, I wish it didn't have to be that way. I see that now. The silence stretched between them, laden with years of hurt and regret. Clara felt like an observer, a witness to a moment that could shape their lives forever. Please, can you just tell me why? James prompted, desperation cracking his facade. She reached out, her frail hand shaking as it moved toward him. I thought, if I let go, you could have a better life. I didn't want to hold you back. He softened slightly, the wall separating them beginning to crack. You held me only in the shadows of your absence, he confessed. I can't take back those years, she said, her voice strained, but I'm here now. Please, can we start over? James's breath hitched. There was raw sincerity in her eyes, a glimmer of the woman he once cherished. Do you even love me anymore? He asked, a fear lurking just beneath the surface. I've always loved you. The passion in her voice ignited a warmth between them as she pressed her palms together in a gesture of peace. I'm here because I want to change. I want to be better for you. In that moment, Clara felt the shift. James's heart wrestled with the ghosts of the past, but right here, in this small hospital room filled with the scent of antiseptic and possibility, lay the power of connection. Okay, James said slowly, his voice finally steady. But it will take time. I want that, she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. Together, we can heal. As their eyes met, the moment crystallized into something beautiful, a fragile thread woven from mutual understanding and shared sorrow. Back in the lobby, Clara felt the weight on her chest lift, an emotional tide changing course. She could hear the whispers of the crowd in her mind, the tales of resilience and hope ringing louder. Stories indeed could ignite change, just as this moment had begun to spark within James's heart. James left the room, and when he looked into Clara's eyes, something was different. There was vulnerability, yes, but also a flicker of strength. I think I can do this, he murmured, a newfound determination lighting his gaze. Clara smiled, tears threatening her vision. You already are. This is just the beginning. Together they stepped back into the world, not as two broken souls but as a community ready to embrace the healing that lay before them. Clara turned to Sarah and Richard, who had been waiting, seeing their faces filled with admiration. We did it, she said, tearing up, her heart swelling with pride. Yes, Richard said, emerging closer, and you've sparked something bigger, Clara. You brought us all together. Clara felt a shared warmth wash over them, like a light emerging from darkness. This isn't just about us, she said, looking around at the small gathering that had reformed. It's about each and every one of our stories. We're all connected. Yes. Someone shouted, and soon a ripple of agreement swept through the crowd, hearts beating as one. Let us remember this moment, let it carry us forward, Clara implored. As applause erupted, Clara felt a profound sense of hope blooming, a mutual embrace wrapping around them like a protective shield. They were ready for change, for connection, and every step they took would bring them closer to the understanding they sought. Now, let us spread this truth. Clara exclaimed with newfound fervor. Let everyone know that sharing our stories, holding space for vulnerability and understanding leads to connection. We are all capable of change. Let's lift each other up. As the sun set, casting golden hues across the horizon, they collectively stepped toward the future, determined to transform their pain into a collective force of hope and love. This was their moment, one they would carry forever, shining through even the darkest times. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive stories, leave a like now to feed the algorithm, comment your reactions and feelings about the ending, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.